received a letter telling me to come home. I don't know who wrote it, but the handwriting looks so familiar. I don't know why I'm here. It couldn't be. Feels like something's crawling around in my fucking head.
You're walking home at night. The air is thick and filled with fog. The streets are completely desolate. You hear sounds in the distance, but you can't make out exactly what they are. You feel vulnerable, you feel alone, you're terrified, because you don't know what could be out there in the fog, waiting for you. Silent Hill 2 is one of the greatest horror games ever made. It sort of sits atop this pedestal within the gaming sphere as that one untouchable masterpiece of horror gaming. The fans are rabid, the lore is deep, and the story is so complex that YouTube has filled to the brim with video after video about why this game is so good. Why do I want to do it? Because I am in love with it. I am specifically going to be focused on the remake here today, as it is the only one I've played and I do genuinely feel like it's a good way to experience the story. The game begins with you, James Sunderland, going into the mysterious town of Silent Hill to find your wife. But the mysterious thing is, she's dead. James tells us he received a letter from Mary 3 years after her premature death at the hands of that damn disease. The letter tells James that she's waiting for him in Silent Hill, in their special place.
In my restless dreams, I see that town. Silent Hill. You promised you'd take me there again someday, but you never did. I'm alone there now, in our special place, waiting for you.
Silent Hill absolutely terrified me, and I'm not someone who really scares so easy.
Selfish wretch! You come into my house! You lay your filthy man hands on my daughters! And now you even try to steal my property! How dare you!
I have such a big boner.
I've played a fair amount of horror games and none really scared me like this one did. Silent Hill really had me exiting off the game and playing Astrobot instead.
You see that?
Okay, so I'm gonna kill myself. Okay.
The game does an excellent job of making you afraid of literally nothing. The scariest moments for me was when I was walking around the streets or in a hallway. It was the unfamiliarity, the unknown. You fear a hallway, a foggy road because you don't know it. You don't understand it. And you always fear what you don't understand. After receiving the letter from Mary, James walks into Silent Hill, passing a mysterious red square in a wall. James, of course, interacts with it and talks about how it feels like something is crawling around his skull. He walks into a graveyard encountering a mysterious woman who tells James she's looking for her mama.
I'm sorry. I was just...
Hey, it's okay. I didn't mean to scare you.
Before she quickly corrects herself to sound more adult. She warns James, however, that there's something weird about Silent Hill.
I'm looking for Silent Hill. Is this the right way?
Yeah. It's hard to see with this fog, but there's only the one road. You can't miss it.
Thanks.
But I think you should stay away. This town, there's something wrong with it.
Which James completely fucking ignores. After receiving the warning, he goes into Silent Hill, noticing a distinct lack of people, but of course he marches on. We see signs that there is in fact something wrong. Who could have guessed? We then stumble upon our first enemy, to which James dispatches with relative ease. We then find a mysterious jukebox which, when played, reveals to us where we need to go. James learns that him and Mary's special place could in fact be Rosewater Park, a serene little place in the town of Silent Hill. So to get there, James goes through some apartments where we encounter Eddie.
Something brought you here.
Yeah, you could say that. Well, they came at me. I didn't know what to do, so I ran. I came here. Figured it might be safe, but then I found the guy in the fridge.
There's no fucking Mars bar down there. What are you looking at?
vomiting in the bathroom after finding a corpse and completely denying his involvement, which is not suspicious in the slightest. James has some brief encounters with a few other characters here, one being the mysterious little girl.
Hey! Wait!
And another being the infamous period head. And the other period head. Another being the infamous pyramid head, which we encounter for the first time behind bars, waiting. Eventually we find ourselves encountering him again, to which James, of course, tries to shoot him, which, of course, does absolutely fucking nothing. Pyramid Head then leaves through a mysterious red door, so James, of course, fucking follows him. We enter a more fucked up looking place, which this game refers to as the Otherworld. This, for me, is when I got really fucking scared. The Blue Creek apartments are fantastic at making you feel vulnerable and terrified, probably because you know Pyramid Head is somewhere, lurking, waiting for you.
What?
We eventually encounter Angela in a room surrounded by mirrors holding a blade out of it. James talks with her, takes the knife and leaves. We eventually get out and see the mysterious little girl again, who tells us that James...
You didn't love Mary anyway.
What? Hey, wait! How do you know her name?
How the hell does she know Mary? We get into the park and we eventually see a woman in the distance. And getting closer, it's... Mary? Nope, it's Maria, a woman identical to Mary, but more... sexual in nature. Maria is characterised by her wardrobe, which contrasts greatly to Mary. Her red jacket and more provocative outfit, along with her flirty nature, confuses James. Who the fuck is this? We eventually get into the theatre, which, yes, I know, in the original game, it's a bowling alley, where we meet Eddie and that same child from earlier. Eddie is stuffing his face with pizza and ice cream, to which James says,
I see that you didn't make it out yet.
Yeah. I just didn't get around to it yet.
Well, at least you got your appetite back.
Eddie tells us that the little girl is called Laura, so James, the hero he is, goes to try and find her. Eventually, she leads you and Maria to the hospital, where we meet a new enemy type, the nurses. Yes, I know you've seen these before, I know you think they're hot, you're not cool, you're not funny, you're just a goddamn degenerate like the rest of us. Eventually, Maria feels faint, so we leave her to get some rest for a while, continuing to try and find Laura. We get to the roof, meet Pyramid Head again, get bitched around, and eventually end up finding Laura, and of course she locks us in a fucking room where we have to fight another eldritch horror beyond our own comprehension, called the Flesh Lip. James kills the creature and upon leaving is back in the Otherworld. So you've got to open this box. Why? Well, because what the fuck else is there to do really? Eventually, after a few tricky puzzles, you get the box open, finally revealing... nothing. A door opens, we get Maria back, find a ring or two and open the door. James and Maria go through and, of course, encounter the Pyramid Head again.
Come on, hurry!
But Maria doesn't get off so lucky here. Alone again, naturally, James pushes onward to the Historical Society. We eventually head down a long staircase, finding a mysterious pit. So, James jumps down. Here we enter the prison, meeting angry Eddie, who jokes about murdering a man. James gets through this dark, terrifying place and decides it's time to check out early. Nope, just kidding. He was getting to a labyrinth. No, not the fun one with David Bowie's crotch. This labyrinth is really, really scary and filled with some weird fucking shit. James goes down a corridor and we find Maria?
You said you took everything. But you forgot that videotape we made. I wonder if it's still there.
How do you know about that? Aren't you Maria?
I'm not your Mary.
We venture to try and make our way to Maria, but when we arrive, she's...
Maria.
dead again. Just another way to torture an innocent man for losing his wife. James eventually finds a distressed Angela and we battle what is called the Abstract Daddy in Angela's own personal hell. We then say bye-bye to Angela, meeting Eddie again, who's finally gone off the fucking rails.
How many times do I have to kill you?
Eddie? Whoa, Eddie, it's me.
Oh. Hi, James. You fat, disgusting piece of shit, you make me sick. You gonna cry, fat ass? You gonna run to your mama? Waste of skin, why don't you just kill yourself?
So, he gets shot in the fucking skull. James looks at his hands, horrified by his actions. How could he take the life of another? James leaves to find the hotel he and Mary stayed at once, not too soon before she began to fall ill. We eventually meet Laura again, and she's finally treating us with kindness. Laura tells us that she knew Mary last year in the hospital.
Laura. How old are you?
I turned 8 last week.
That means... Mary couldn't have died 3 years ago.
No, but that doesn't make any sense. Mary died 3 years ago.
Could she really be here?
James goes through hell and back to find a tape he allegedly left here a while ago, promising to possibly answer everything. Sitting down, playing it, it's finally revealed. In order to really appreciate this game for the work of art that it is, we've got to take a few steps back. Silent Hill 2 isn't just fantastic because of its rich story, it's fantastic because of its gameplay, sound design, soundtrack, and level design. I think it is essential to dissect each part of this game in order to really appreciate it. When you first enter the town of Silent Hill, you'll notice this thick fog engrossing the entire town, making each step you take that more terrifying. Now, the fog isn't just there to set the vibe, it's psychologically tricking the player into fearing each and every move you make. Who knows what could be round that corner? The game also waits a while before giving you the flashlight, so every building you head into is that much more creepy. Who knows what could be in there, or who? The town is crammed with little notes and details that tell smaller scale stories, like this little note I found in the flower shop talking about a man coming in and buying some unlucky flowers. Who could this man be? Could it be a mysterious figure looming over, watching us as we carry on? Could it be James? You know, is Silent Hill trying to call him a fucking idiot for buying this stupid unlucky bundle of fucking flowers? You fucking idiot, James. The game also hints towards the answers to puzzles using stories and notes written by people in the town. They write about some drunkard coming in and being a little loser bitch, which helps make the world feel that much more alive. Or weirdly, that little bit more dead. These stories and signs of life help to make Silent Hill feel more desolate and sad. A town without people is scary, but a desolate town that was once seemingly bustling is arguably scarier. We're left to ask the question, where did these people go? The town also has a few corpses lying around, but the weird thing is, these corpses are seemingly James? This creates curiosity in the player. We wonder why they look like us, we wonder how they died, it creates a level of uncertainty. The town is also scattered with these huge monolithic walls that block James from going in any direction that the town doesn't necessarily want him to. These walls are adorned with sheets, creating a sense of intrigue, and you'll find yourself asking, how did they get here? Eventually, you'll make your way into the Woodside Apartments, and from there, you'll enter the absolutely hellish Blue Creek Apartments. Like I touched on before, this is where I really got fucking terrified. You enter into this contorted and twisted version of these apartments, caked in dirt and rust, with this cacophony of fear throughout. This place is so effective at terrifying the player because we know that we are not meant to be here. We know that this is not our domain. Subconsciously, we also know that Pyramid Head is somewhere, ready to strike at any point. The Blue Creek Apartments, like many other levels, has a series of puzzles one must complete in order to get out. The puzzles in the Blue Creek Apartments all talk about people with names and possible stories. This creates a lot of unease within the player because we ask again, what the hell happened here? The enemies here are also just a little different. The lying figures now burst out with acid and are a little harder to deal with. The Blue Creek Apartments are so oppressive and mean in their design that you feel completely unwelcomed. It's clear that you are not wanted here. It is clear that you should not fucking be here. Upon entering room 209, you're greeted with this little haunting whisper.
What?
This whisper is so fucking genius, man. It has no lore meaning, it has no deeper fucking reason, it is just there to fucking terrify you, and terrify you it will. The puzzles in the Blue Creek Apartments all culminate in you opening these two big fucking doors, and these two big doors the entire time you're sat there asking yourself, what the fuck is behind these? And eventually you get there and it's the obvious answer. It's Pyramid Head wanting to fucking kill you, but he doesn't. And that's arguably even scarier. Now, after a bit of fuckery, you'll end up chasing Laura into one of the best levels in this entire game, the hospital. As I said before, you meet the bobblehead nurses who walk around wearing nice clothes. The hospital is incredible. You enter in here with Maria, exploring the first section with her. This is a really interesting move from the developers in my opinion, as it has two very varying effects on the player. You'll either feel a slight comfort knowing you're not facing this terrifying, dramatic place alone because you have Maria there with you, or you'll feel somewhat more fear, feeling responsible for the life of another. How can you protect her from the terrifying creatures that roam through the hospital? The basement of the hospital is uncomfortable and dark. Who knows what's waiting for you round the corner? And down here, there usually something is waiting for you round the corner. Once you get the power on and the elevator running, you get a pretty creepy cutscene.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Welcome to another exciting edition of Trick or Treat, where you answer our questions correctly and win a prize beyond your wildest dreams. Or you fail to answer correctly and receive the punishment. It's all in the hands of our lucky contestant, James Sunderland. James, are you ready to play Trick or Treat?
This is brilliant at making the player question reality. How do these people know James's name? Is this real life or just fantasy? And what's great also about this is that it doesn't necessarily always come back later. It's an optional puzzle, it's something that you find in your journeying throughout the hospital. In my playthrough, I didn't find the puzzle, and this scene is arguably all the more scarier for it. Because you're sat there waiting again for these people to come back, and I was terrified because frankly I didn't know the answer to these questions. After you make it to the top floor, James is left alone again, forced to find Laura in this terrifying hellscape of the hospital. As you wander around the hospital, its dirty, dank hallways put you on edge. It terrifies you. This place is so scary because it's not your average hospital, and what I mean by that is that a hospital is usually pretty sterile and clean. Bright white lights, bright white walls, but the hospital here isn't. It's broken, it's dirty, and it's dark. The hospital is also scattered with these notes about these three mysterious patients, creating more intrigue within the player. Who are these patients? Where are these patients? Could they be the monsters we fight? Could everything in this town be some sort of virus that's came and taken over everyone? You'll find Laura on the other end of this big bulking door, completing puzzles to get to the roof to find your way to the other end. Once you get to the roof, James gets up and you find Laura, who locks you into a mysterious room filled with these horrific sounds.
Open the door, Laura.
Why should I? I'm a liar, right? Want me to open it? Huh? Do ya?
Laura, open this door right now.
What's the magic word?
Laura.
Nope, that's not it. I guess I won't open it.
Get me out of here, you brat.
In your dreams, fart face.
Laura, please open the door. There's something in here.
You know something's in there, but what could it be? The game throws another boss your way, this terrifying creature trapped in a rusty old cage. The battle isn't terrible, but it's the sense that you are trapped in this room. There is nothing you can do except fight, and if you don't, you're dead. Once you complete it, you enter into a world far worse than anything the hospital has thrown at you so far. The other world version of the hospital is rusty and evil. The environment itself feels like it's out to get you. You find a box adorned with chains and locks. The weight of how much you really need to find dawns on you. You know you're not getting out here so soon. It sounds like it hates you. Like you can almost hear it screaming out for you to leave. The enemies here walk around, and when you go to exterminate them, they're gone. The tight hallways are made even more scary by how quickly something can come and get you. How quickly you can go from understanding the fear to feeling back at square one. The game also throws similar puzzles and similar situations to you, but with a bit of a twist. You have to do certain things in different ways now. What's brilliant too is that once James opens the box after all of that work, you gain this excitement to see what's inside. Just to be greeted with nothing. This is genius because it almost tells the player that the rules are off. I mean, most of the time in a game when you do all this work, you are rewarded for it. But this is Silent Hill looking you in the eyes and saying, no, we're going to make you do stupid shit, go out your way, be terrified, just to receive nothing in return. It's a promise that the game will eventually owe you for everything you've done. It's genius, it's confident, and it's fantastic. Upon leaving the hospital, now without Maria, James enters the Silent Hill Historical Society, finding a long staircase leading somewhere. The Historical Society is filled with little details and stories that really help this world feel alive, like this tale of the alleged witch and her lover, where the lover devoted his entire life to finding her, searching for her candlelight, only to be fooled by the moon's reflection. Now, of course, this could mean nothing, but to me, I see this as a possible sign that James is being led astray, that he won't find his Mary and that instead will be faced with a cruel reflection of the woman he once held dear.
What a thrill, with darkness and silence through the night.
As we go down the staircase, we finally enter into the first part of the next environment, the prison. We see little notes and details telling us a deeper story about this place. Oh. We see that the prison is an ex-prison camp for POWs, sort of like how we learn that the hospital was once a place for treating the plague. Silent Hill has a history of its institutions being placed on places once filled with agony, where these visages of horror still remain. James sees a long, empty pit and makes the completely rational decision to jump down. When we enter the main bit of the prison, we're greeted with Eddie, fresh off the high of slaughtering a man just for looking at him.
And you could tell that he wanted to hurt you.
Well, yeah, I mean, the way you looked at me, I just had to do it.
He looked at you? I thought you said he came at you.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I could see it in his eyes.
Of course, James, the man who will never harm anything, tells him,
Eddie, you can't just kill someone because of the way they looked at you.
But of course, Eddie was just joking around, you know. You should have seen your face, James. And once Eddie departs, we're free to roam around Toluca Prison. I fucking hate this place. It is scary, it is dark, it is stressful, it is long, and it is fucking awful to play at 3 AM. Here we can unlock the rifle, and I imagine most of you did. I didn't. I just sort of forgot. I think the fear got too much for me, man. Toluca Prison just introduces a fun new thing for mannequins to do. Crawl up the walls and onto the roofs, making it even harder for you to keep track of enemies in a place where, yep, the lights don't work. The sound design here is doing so much heavy lifting. The ambient sounds of crawling and creaking really hammer home how hostile this environment is. You're alone now. No Eddie, no Angela, no Maria, but also you are definitely not alone. As we go outside, we see the main puzzle of this area, which is this weird thing involving weights and symbols, which, as the level progresses, requires you to spend more and more time out here, and vulnerable. An eerie crawling can be heard out in the darkness. Who knows what's waiting out here for you? The different sections of the prison are all absolutely crammed with evil enemies and scary lighting. Nothing ever feels safe here. There is not one part of this level that provides any comfort or security. You are not meant to be here. At one point you get trapped in this torturous spiky room and you get harassed by tons and tons of enemies. This place hates you and is ruthless when it comes to telling you about it. The lower end of the prison is this weird fucked up asylum type place, like where he ends up in Jacob's Ladder, which by the way was a huge inspiration for the original Silent Hill 2. The weight puzzle then culminates in another, the gallows, one that forces you to read and think about a range of heinous acts and atrocities once committed in the town of Silent Hill, further highlighting how deranged and horrific Silent Hill truly is. Once you match these up correctly, you gotta drop down.
You gotta kill yourself.
James pulls upon the noose and drops down into the labyrinth. Walking around the labyrinth, we eventually find Angela, tormented in her own personal hellscape by a horrific version of her own father and brother. We are chased down by the abstract daddy while also having to shoot him. This level is designed to replicate Angela and the torment she faced from the figures in her life. We hide in wardrobes, hear talk of torment, and eventually we slaughter him. But nothing changes. She still feels vulnerable and she's still filled with so much hatred.
It's okay. It's over.
Don't even try.
Try what?
Like you don't know.
This is a lot bigger than just a scary level, and I'm going to touch more on that later, but right now, let's just move on. Most places in this labyrinth are rotted and desolate, covered in bugs and strange metal bars. Some walkways have no flooring, forcing James to dodge and battle these strange creatures with mouths upon their appendages. Eventually, James finds Maria again, creating confusion. How could she be alive? She died. We saw her die. This works to 1. Make the player question who or what Maria really is. How can she survive something so horrific? Maria here also seems just a little bit different.
James? Honey? Did something happen to you? After we got separated in that long hallway? Are you confusing me with someone else?
2, it makes us feel slight hope. Surely if Maria can come back from something as horrific as getting stabbed, maybe Mary can too. If we pass whatever test is being thrown our way, maybe we can finally get Mary back. Eventually, however, you find Maria dead, which clearly begins to destroy James. Once again, he is tormented. When we finally make it out, we find Eddie again, and he's clearly snapped, beginning a boss fight unlike any other.
Follow me all the way out here. How many times do I have to kill you?
we have to murder Eddie, in what I believe to be a place made to reflect Eddie himself. The cold, icy design of the butcher's freezer is another cold aspect of this character. For example, we see him eating ice cream, he breathes sort of this frosty air while he's in the prison, and now he's in this icy area. This battle contrasts with every other fight because Eddie isn't just a horrific creature, he's a human being. A fucked up, pretty fucking fat one, but he is still a human being. Upon taking his life, the player and James feel remorseful. Sure, Eddie wasn't the best, but did he really deserve to die? And now, after taking human life, we make our way to what I would call the best and final stage of Silent Hill 2. As James ventures across Toluca Lake into the Lakeview Hotel, you feel as if this is truly it. Throughout Silent Hill 2, you're constantly met with this requirement to go through one more sprawling segment right after feeling like you know where it's going to go. But killing Eddie and having Angela confront her fears, as well as having James truly endure utter fucking hell, puts it into perspective that this very well may be the final place for you to venture. You enter into the hotel, spotting Laura and talking with her. Laura talks like she knew Mary only a year ago. But if Mary died 3 years ago, then how could this be? Eventually, you lose Laura in this old abandoned hotel and are forced to wander around alone once again. The hotel takes a lot of inspiration from the real-life hotel they used for the Overlook hotel from The Shining, with the staircase being just eerily familiar. Behind the desk, you see a note left for you, that the videotape you left here has been left safe and sound. Here, the goal of this stage is set. We've got to find a way to play that damn tape. By this point, the tape promises to answer everything. It makes logical sense that we'll do all this work to have our questions answered. The hotel is also scattered with monsters, still leaving you on edge. If Mary is here, she might not necessarily be okay. As you go through the rooms, you get a little insight into the people that stayed there, seeing notes and mini stories once again, further allowing this place to feel lived in and desolate. On the map, Mary's writing can be seen on room 12, telling James that she's waiting there for him. The excitement begins to build inside the player. Finally, we will get our answers to our questions. The hotel is also littered with references to fairy tale princesses, as you need to collect 3 models of 3 different princesses to complete the music box puzzle. The 3 princesses are Cinderella, Snow White and the Little Mermaid. Now, not to read too deep into it, but I was a media studies student, all 3 of these stories involve a man and a woman. For example, the Little Mermaid is, in fact, not really so happy and joyous, and there was no Jamaican funny crab. In the original story, the Little Mermaid is treated terribly by the prince, eventually being rejected by him. She lives in constant agony, only to be rejected by the one she truly loves. This is gonna come back later, I promise. Cinderella is a little bit different, however. The prince does love Cinderella, but she constantly runs away, out of fear he'll find out who she really is. Could this possibly be used in Silent Hill as a reference to Maria? The idea that she isn't who she thinks or says she is? And James, as the prince, is chasing her only for her not to be there. Well, be dead, but you get what I mean. And Snow White is a story of the evil queen trying to murder Snow White out of jealousy, angry that she isn't the fairest maiden in the land. Again, I'm not too sure how relevant this is, but it could possibly be a reference to how James may have attraction towards Maria, making Mary angry or jealous. Maybe this represents James's internal guilt over finding Maria attractive. This level does have a boss fight with another lipped being, but in my playthrough I just managed to get the fuck out of there instead of killing it. The Mandarin is this weird chunky beast with lips upon the stumps of his arms. Now there's not just one of these fuckers. One of my favourite parts of the entire game is in this level where you find out where you need to go, and when going to leave, the elevator tells you you're carrying too much. Of course, I tried putting a few items into the locker, and nope, you've got to put everything down. You've got to go down into the unknown without your shotgun, your pistol, your metal pipe, etc, etc. This is incredible game design because by now your weapons have sort of acted as a safety blanket. You know, if an enemy comes up, it may be scary and you might get scared for a little second, but pause the game, take a minute, boom, shoot his fucking head off. Going down into unknown territory, who knows what could be down there? Will you have to face Pyramid Head with nothing but your little fists? So you head down and you're greeted with more mandarins. An enemy I couldn't even take on too well when I had all my gear. I was absolutely fucking terrified during this section, but I continued to push on. Eventually, you'll get out, get your stuff, and make your way into room 312, where we finally get to watch the tape.
Are you taping again? Come on. I don't know why, but I just love it here. It's so peaceful.
And I felt betrayed. This moment here shocked me, it hurt me, it made me feel like I had done all of this, fought so hard, been through so much, just to find out it was all because of one man's guilty conscience. You're then left to walk out of that room in a burnt down version of the hotel you were once wandering, thematically flipping a switch to push you further into feeling downtrodden. The twist here somewhat creates a dissonance between the player and James. Fight these horrific creatures, venture through the grimiest places you've ever seen, just for what? His wife to have never been there? Mary could never have been here, and if she was, why would she want to see him here? He fucking murdered her. It's hard because you spend hours and hours growing to like James, appreciating all the stupid shit he does to find the wife that he loves. But it's useless. Because in that moment, he's objectively in the wrong the entire time he has been objectively in the wrong. He killed his sick and dying wife.
Mama? Mama! I was looking for you. You're the only one left. Maybe then I can finally rest. Mama. What's wrong? Wait. You're not my mama. It's you.
I'm sorry, Angela. I think you were right. What we're looking for, it's not here. Not anymore.
After finding out the truth about Mary, we attempt to leave the hotel and find Angela on the stairs, with the entire stairwell being covered in flames. Angela calls James her mother, before realising he's not who she wants him to be, that she will not find her mother anywhere. James talks to Angela with a much more defeated tone. He's slowly coming to terms with the fact that Mary isn't here anymore. She's never been here. Angela tells James she wishes he never helped her.
Thank you for helping me earlier. But I wish you hadn't. Even Mama said it. I deserve what happened.
No, Angela, that is not true.
Don't pity me.
Walking off into the flames. If you ask me, Angela took her own life at this point. Her telling James she wishes he never helped her is a clear sign that she feels like her death is simply just being prolonged. Her disappearing into the flames may represent her succumbing to her own internal struggles, consuming her like a flame consumes a house. After leaving Angela, James encounters the 9 save squares, which have always been a sign of debate among the Silent Hill community. They may represent a fractured psyche, multiple gateways into James's now broken mind. James goes through 2 doors, encountering Maria strung upside down by 2 pyramid heads.
Leave her alone!
Begging for help. James asks to be left alone, pleading with the triangular tyrants only for them to stab Maria with their spears. James falls down in agony and defeat.
I know what you are. I know why I needed you.
Declaring he knows why he needed Pyramid Head. which is likely his need to feel punishment for his actions. They're a form of atonement. The pyramid upon their heads is likely a reference to the old executioners of Silent Hill, likely sticking in James's mind from when he and Maria came here last. The two versions of Pyramid Head here likely represent the two lives James has taken, Eddie and Mary. He feels the weight of his actions here, and must defeat the very things holding him back. After defeating the two bosses, James leaves, going down a dark, empty hallway.
What do you want, James? Flowers? I don't want any damn flowers.
We can hear all the things Mary said to James while she was sick, allowing us to understand how awful it must have been for James to be told all of this. However, it may just be James's interpretation of his wife, angry, pathetic and self-loathing. How can we know all of this isn't just more and more delusions? At the end of the hallway, you find her. Finally, after all these hours, you finally found Mary. James runs into her arms, telling her how he missed her, and they share a beautiful moment together, but it is swiftly cut short by James refusing to fall back into the delusion.
I have missed you so much.
I've missed you too. We can finally be together. Forever.
No.
He sees her as Maria now, a poor interpretation of the woman he once loved. Maria tries to plead with James to stay in Silent Hill, effectively begging him to choose her. James apologises and refuses to just play pretend, acknowledging that it's finally time to move on. Mary/Maria becomes this demonic beast that James must now defeat, symbolising him finally defeating his hatred of Mary, finally now accepting that she is no longer here. Eventually, once defeated, Mary begs for James, covered in blood, trapped in this contraption, and as James walks over, looking at his wife one last time, he just now, after all this, you'll finally get to the game's ending. And there is not just one. In fact, there are about 8 different endings, and I promise we're going to get through all of them, so strap in. There are, in fact, 2 jokey endings of Silent Hill. Both of these require the player to do certain things to achieve them. So just to get these out of the way, the dog ending is absolutely infamous in the community. I'm sure you've heard of it, with James for some reason talking Polish in the remake and, sort of a more reasonable Japanese in the original. The general gist of the ending is that James finds a Shiba Inu that controls seemingly everything. The UFO ending is a running gag in almost all of the Silent Hill games, and in the remake we see the original games as James talking to the new one, taking him away with the Greys. The Leave ending is probably the happiest ending in Silent Hill. It has James talk to a sick and dying Mary, showing James's internal reasoning.
Don't be. I told you. I wanted the pain to end.
We see that James reasoned with himself by acknowledging that Mary wanted the pain to end, that he did that for her. But in this moment he realises that wasn't his main goal.
But that's not why I did it. The truth is, I hated you.
He tells Mary the truth. She gives him a letter, telling him it's what he was looking for. This shows that James's subconscious pushed him forwards to admit his crime to himself. That he wasn't looking for Mary deep down, he was just looking for acceptance. James takes the letter, finds Laura and shows it to her, seemingly finding reason with her. They leave together as Mary's letter is read out loud to us.
In my restless dreams, I see that town. Silent Hill.
We see that Mary knows she wasn't too kind to James, that she feels a sort of guilt for falling ill.
I know. I've done a terrible thing to you. I wish I could change that, but I can't. I feel so pathetic and ugly laying here. Every day I stare up at the cracks in the ceiling, and all I can think about is how unfair it is.
But we also see that James did begin to hate her, and that she saw right through it.
I'm afraid you don't really want me to come home. Every time you come to see me, I can tell how hard it is on you. I don't know if you hate me or pity me. Or maybe I just disgust you.
This ending is not really my favourite. I think it's a bit too unlikely. James tells Laura straight up that he killed Mary, you know, it's too unlikely that she'd forgive him for that.
Liar. That's a lie.
No. It's the truth.
She died because she was sick?
I killed her.
You're the murderer! I know!
Especially from what we've seen of her, you know, she's horrid to James at the best of times. I can't necessarily buy that she would just absolutely forgive him and disappear off with him just after reading Mary's letter. At the end of the day, he killed Mary. And this ending, in my opinion, sort of doesn't really give him much punishment. It's sort of a, oh, don't do that again, James.
I miss you so much.
The In Water is a more tragic ending to the game. James sits in his car, talking to the corpse of Mary. He sounds full of regret and shame, refusing to accept and forgive himself for what he's done.
I just can't go on without you. I can't forgive myself for what I've done.
James realizes it doesn't matter anymore. He can't live on. He can't do what Mary would have wanted. He finally understands why he really came to Silent Hill.
In my restless dreams, I see that town. Silent Hill.
And he drives into the lake, taking his own life. I kind of like this ending. I think James taking his own life makes the most logical sense. The entire plot revolves around him refusing to accept what he's done. It makes sense that the realization of his actions would drive him to suicide, that a man broken enough to snap the way James did would of course take his own life. I also think that it's better than the Leave ending because James doesn't get off scot-free. He's dead. And while of course his pain and trauma is over, he's still technically suffering for his actions.
I can't go on without you. I can't forgive myself for what I've done.
I know.
The Stillness ending is super similar to the In Water ending, but with just a few changes. The Stillness ending shows a much more defeated and pathetic James, still sort of holding on to his delusions, despite knowing that it's over. He can no longer know what is real or not, so of course he takes his own life. Again, I think this ending's pretty good. It's not as good as the In Water ending, because this one's a lot darker and more brutal, and we don't get Mary's letter. There isn't a willingness in James to try and understand himself. He just accepts that he is fucked in the head.
You look so peaceful.
The Rebirth ending is unlocked through collecting the right things in New Game Plus. It shows James refusing to accept reality, grabbing Mary out the back of his car and heading deeper into Silent Hill to try and bring her back via an ancient ritual. Now, James doing this is either super romantic or absolutely fucking foul, and I'm gonna go with the latter. His tone is somewhat sinister. He sounds different, like he sort of slipped deeper into a brand new delusion that he can and will bring Mary back. This ending is alright, it's cool and interesting to see James refuse to accept it's over, and I guess it's also pretty logical. It makes sense that if you regretted what you did to your wife and you could bring her back, you'd at the very least try.
Defy even death. Very.
The Bliss ending can come a little earlier in the game, requiring the player to collect a few things along the way, also being locked behind a New Game Plus playthrough. The Bliss ending shows James disappearing into the tape with Mary.
It's too bad we have to leave. Promise you'll take me again, James.
I promise.
With them finding one another once again, James tells Mary everything is fine. This ending is like good in the sense that it also tracks that he wishes to refuse to accept what he did, and it also hints that James took his own life earlier on, and all we've seen throughout the entirety of the game is just James's own eternal struggle while dying. But it's also just a little whatever, but I guess it's not that deep considering it's sort of a secret ending. So, the ending I got is probably, in my opinion, the darkest and worst one. The Maria ending shows James going and finding Maria, putting the letter away and attempting to leave Silent Hill with Maria. As they go to leave, she coughs, and James, without even looking at her, tells her,
"Better do something about that cough."
This ending is like super dark in my opinion. It doesn't involve a clear-cut finale for James like the Stillness and In Water endings do. It just shows him falling back into the same vicious cycle. Did he learn fucking nothing? I like to think that Maria doesn't necessarily last long outside of Silent Hill because number one, she's a copy of Mary. You know, she's gonna be sick at one point in her life. And two, because she's a creation of Silent Hill. They wouldn't make any sense. How could she survive without the ancient powers in this town to keep her going? I also like this ending on a level that I think it makes a lot of sense for James to sort of just refuse to accept what he's done. While he accepts, he realizes he can just go and get Maria, maybe try again and do something better, possibly showing that he's willing to give himself a second chance. But maybe that's just simply a guise to do the exact same thing over and over again. I don't think that he would murder Maria, but I think he would grow to hate her once again. Now, to really appreciate Silent Hill for what it is, we need to push deeper than just the narrative and game design. Silent Hill is filled with these metaphors and deeper meanings, and I think that it is vital to look between the lines and analyse what we can in order to gather everything from Silent Hill 2. Just a heads up, by the way, we're going to be talking about some pretty heavy topics, so if anything seen on the screen here is an uncomfortable topic to you, I won't be offended if you click off or just skip away. It's perfectly understandable, and I hope that I handle these things with enough care and appreciation in a sense. Angela Orozco is one of the first characters you'll meet on your way into Silent Hill, finding her at the graveyard searching for her mother. She mentions her brother and father are also meant to be in the town too. Angela seems on edge and somewhat jittery, but not a character that we can't trust, just someone who's definitely got a few things on her mind. As we go forward, we'll learn more and more about Angela's past and her psyche.
Oh, it's you.
Yeah. I'm James.
Angela.
Angela is a victim of abuse, that abuse being physical, mental, and sadly, sexual. Angela's sexual abuse came at the hands of her father, and I think we can also assume that her brother wasn't exactly innocent either. Angela's treatment of James throughout the story is a key signifier that the men in her life brought her nothing but trauma and anguish.
If I kept it, I'm not sure what I might do. No! I'm sorry! I've been bad! Please don't!
The people that were meant to guide her destroyed her and treated her like an object. Her self-worth was destroyed by these monsters. Angela seems somewhat afraid of James, likely because of all the abuse. She feels as if she can't trust James because he's a man, which, in all honesty, is completely understandable. When we find Angela contemplating suicide, she's wielding a bloodied knife. The blood on this knife is not her own, but the blood of her father, and possibly her brother too. We can find a bloodied newspaper talking about the death of a man named Thomas Orozco, Angela's father. It makes sense to assume that it was Angela who did this, fleeing into Silent Hill and, like James, almost becoming deluded into forgetting her crime. But unlike James, I don't really think Angela did anything wrong. Say it with me now, the only good rapist is a dead rapist. The battle with the abstract daddy upon further examination is so much more horrifying and vile.
Daddy!
The design of the creature is a visual metaphor for the assault Angela endured. The larger figure pressed down uncomfortably onto a smaller one, with the tight skin pressing them both down, writhing in pain. The screams of the creature could represent the verbal abuse Angela endured, her father's shouting piercing her ears, or this malevolent screaming could be a metaphor for her own screams, her memories of how she had to scream and cry haunting her, lingering upon her mind. This battle has James hiding in wardrobes, running around Angela's hellish trauma, showing how she felt like she had to hide and run away from the abuse suffered in her own home. The walls of some parts of this level are breathing, filled with pistons and contraptions, fleshy, a clear sign of the violation of Angela's physical form. Angela clearly feels guilt. She feels broken over what she did to her father and brother. She may be looking for her mother to reconcile with her guilt, wanting to be held in her mother's arms to be forgiven, as on the stairs we hear that her mother believed that she deserved all of it.
But I wish you hadn't. Even Mama said it. I deserve what happened.
No, Angela, that is not true.
Angela needs her mother to take that back. On the stairs, Angela is broken. She clearly has no self-esteem left. She's angry, she's filled with rage. She wishes that there was someone to help her, knowing that James is not that person. She finally decides that it's over, and as James mentions the heat, she reveals that Silent Hill is always on fire for her. The fire could possibly represent a number of things. For example, the very nature of this fire being this unstoppable force that persistently destroys everything in its path could represent Angela's internal feelings, her inner turmoil, her anger, her sadness taking over, ripping apart her mental health. The fire could also represent her hatred for herself, her father, etc. Angela is characterized here by this fire, this eternal blaze, and as she succumbs to the flames, she succumbs to her own destructive mind.
It's easier just to run. Maybe it's all we deserve. I guess things never really stay the same, do they? You see it too? For me, it's always like this.
Eddie Dombrowski is another character you meet on your journey through Silent Hill, finding him vomiting over a body he supposedly found in a fridge. Eddie doesn't reveal too much about himself, sort of just trying to get through the conversation without trying to arouse any real suspicion.
Oh, you mean the man back there? In the kitchen?
I didn't do it. I swear I didn't kill him.
It's all right. I'm not saying that you did.
Well, they came at me. I didn't know what to do, so I ran. I came here. Figured it might be safe, but then I found the guy in the fridge.
Easy, deep breaths. Look, this place, it's not safe.
Eddie, in all honesty, is not that nice of a guy. He's quite bitter and rude at times. When he and Laura are in the theatre and James arrives, which causes Laura to run away, Eddie just sort of sits there. He doesn't think about how a little girl shouldn't be running around an abandoned town filled with monsters. How can he sit there and eat pizza? This scene sort of showcases how Eddie has a pretty obvious eating disorder. In a stressful situation, he's found ice cream and pizza, eating the ice cream with just his hand, highlighting a somewhat desperation to eat. Eddie's past before coming to Silent Hill was rampant with severe bullying, his bullies treating him like absolute shit, making fun of his weight.
You fat, disgusting piece of shit, you make me sick. You gonna cry, fat ass? You gonna run to your mama? Waste of skin, why don't you just kill yourself? Maybe I am. Nothing but a fat, disgusting piece of shit. But you know what? It doesn't matter if you're smart, dumb, ugly, pretty. It's all the same once you're dead. And a corpse can't laugh!
Eddie had one bully, however, who went a bit too far, refusing to leave him alone. And unable to handle it, Eddie slaughters the bully's dog. Eddie killing the dog, to me, makes him a huge dick. No matter how bad the bullying was, the dog did nothing wrong. He just took his anger out on an innocent bystander. Eddie also shoots the bully in the knee, crippling him. It's implied through some things found in the apartments that Eddie's bully was a sporty jock type, so Eddie doing this is worse than it initially sounds. From here, Eddie likely fled into Silent Hill, facing eternal torment from people, visages of the trauma he faced throughout his life. When Eddie eventually snaps, he attempts to kill James, likely seeing James as just another person who sees him as lesser. Eventually, Eddie pays the price for his aggravation, lying there, cold and lifeless, no longer filled with hatred. James Sunderland will go down in history as one of the best written characters in gaming. His status as the main character of Silent Hill elevates certain things about him to being absolutely legendary, his writing working in tandem with the player in game design. Silent Hill 2 could not work without James Sunderland, and because of the way he and the story are written, it couldn't work without Angela, Eddie, Laura or Maria. James is our anchor point here. Real or fake, everything in his story relates back to James one way or another. The enemies you encounter along the way reflect James's internal struggles and feelings, their designs especially. The lying figures represent James feeling trapped, feeling as if he was unable to escape the life he was in. These creatures lack arms and thrust their bodies outward, making these strange sounds, almost as if they're writhing in agony. James felt trapped while Mary was sick. He felt stuck in their relationship, caring for her, feeling lonely and upset but unable to reasonably leave her, growing to resent his wife. James's love and hatred for Mary was suffocating. The numerous bodies we can encounter on our journey through Silent Hill are manifestations of James's desires to take his own life, his inner want to see himself dead. James encounters numerous corpses throughout the town, with most of them being him. James also suffered a lot of sexual frustration while Mary was ill, likely having some unfaithful feelings and desires. The bobblehead nurses represent that possible level of unfaithful feelings, as he likely saw the nurses in the hospital and may have felt sexual desires towards them, due to being unable to make love to his own wife. The nurses are intentionally fuckable. By design, they have clear illustrious features, but the dirt and grime on them likely conveys the shame that James felt for his desires. The mannequins also represent some sexual frustration, being two pairs of legs stacked on top of each other. The insight into where this came from is a little more vague in my opinion, but it is likely more just a warped idea of a nude woman. And it could also possibly be how James was so sexually frustrated he didn't care who he was fucking, as long as there was a pair of legs and genitals. The mandarins and a range of other monsters in Silent Hill 2 were given lips on strange parts of their bodies. These lips are intended to represent the verbal abuse that James suffered at the hands of Mary, how her mouth was her most useful weapon during her illness, that the words she would speak to James hurt him and made him grow to hate her. James also feels a tremendous amount of guilt for what he did, whether he realizes it or not. Pyramid Head is a manifestation of that guilt, that desire for punishment. Pyramid Head wields his blade and destroys everything in his path. He's a symbol of penance. He represents that desire to suffer for your crimes. This is evident in how he doesn't intend to kill James right away. That'd be far too kind. He instead torments James and hurts him, leaving him alive to suffer more manifestations of his own mind. It is only when James's desire for punishment comes to the forefront do the two Pyramid Heads actively attack, but even then, they kill themselves, representing how James has already been punished for his sins. He possibly found some sort of penance in the town of Silent Hill. James is delusional. For those that didn't realise, he goes on this huge journey, telling himself that Mary sent that letter, believing that he will find her. It isn't necessarily a lie he tells to himself, as it's not really a conscious decision. His brain is actively suppressing what he did. He can't accept his actions, he's broken. However, this somewhat shows that he may still love Mary. No matter what he did, there has to be some sort of love for Mary in his heart, as he takes no pride in what he did. James felt trapped watching the love of his life slowly deteriorate at the hands of her illness, making him feel isolated and angry. It's easier to run away. I can somewhat sympathise with James here, and if you've ever been in a similar situation, I'm sure you could too. Watching someone you love slowly fade away is world-ending. It feels as if your entire world is falling in on itself, like everything is ending. It's so easy to grow to resent them, but not for who they are or what they do, but because of the situation. It is always easier to run away. James enters Silent Hill to kill himself, but snaps and begins to believe he's here to see Mary. He puts himself in the position of the hero. He will go and save his wife. He will bring her back. I think James tries to help some of the people he finds in Silent Hill as a way to sort of reconcile with himself. Subconsciously, he may be trying to do good things as an attempt to negate every bad thing he's done. He cannot accept he is not a good guy. James's relationships throughout the game also showcase some interesting ideas and possible representations. From a narrative standpoint, I believe that every character in this game represents something about James. Angela and Eddie are especially relevant in showcasing the two paths he could go down. James can either become like Angela, allowing his grief and regret to consume him, becoming a hollow shell of regret and pain. Or he may become like Eddie, angry at the world, feeling an immense self-pity, a lack of desire to fix himself or accept what he did. It's interesting how Eddie is shown often as an icy character and Angela as fire. I like to think of James as this sort of middle ground here. He's never necessarily giving off colder or warmer vibes. Maybe James is meant to be like water, a changing, flowing state. Maybe this represents how James is capable of change, depending on which path he takes, fire or ice. Maria is seen to represent an idealized version of Mary. She's flirtatious, she's attractive, she's alive. James wishes Mary could have been more like Maria. Maria also has a little butterfly tattoo on her chest, possibly a representation that she's better than Mary, as Mary discusses how she feels like she's wrapped in a cocoon of pain and loneliness. Maria constantly comes back after dying, which is again something I feel like James wishes for Mary. Maria listens to James most of the time also, but can still be pretty manipulative and off-putting.
Catch our breath before we head back out there.
I don't have time to take a break. Mary could be out there, waiting for me.
I know. It's just... this place, this whole thing, it's like a nightmare. I just wanted to get away from it, even for a second. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
I think Laura kind of works to belittle James, as she is the only other one in the town to really share the same sentiment that Mary is alive and well.
Mary couldn't have died 3 years ago. Could she really be here?
Unable to understand that she's in a different place now. Laura and James have extremely similar logical paths, but that's kind of ironic because she's literally a fucking 8-year-old. It equates James to having this childlike, dumb logic. Laura could also exist here to remind James of the life he will never truly get. He'll never have children of his own with Mary. Maybe that's why he cares for her so much. James Sunderland is so fascinating to me because I don't hate him. For as much as I want to try and hate this wife murdering mental case, I just can't. It's genius because it makes me try and understand him. It makes me sympathise with him. And it makes me see the brilliance of Silent Hill 2.
Mary.
I could feel it.
Could you really be in this town?
As the train left, a puddle of drying oil, I could see myself swimming in it. Was all cold except for the laughter.
In my restless dreams, I see that town. Silent Hill.
Sleep next to 3 others. It's hot and we rot in this oven. Now there's something about the language, something about these people that look an awful lot like me. I'm surprisingly accepting of this discomfort, but I'm not trying to be much of a person right now. I'm just trying to get some sleep.
I didn't do anything. He was like that when I got here.
Aren't you Maria?
Are you taping again? Come on.
This thing has got the best of